This is pre-algebra lesson 4-2, exponents. An exponent is a number that shows how many times the base is used as a factor. For example, in the problem 4 to the third power, the 3 is an exponent. Okay, this is your exponent, 3 right there. It says you should use the 4 as a base 3 times. A power is an expression in the form of a to the n. Sometimes a power is used interchangeably to refer to the exponent. So 4 to the third power, 30 is an exponent, but sometimes they say third power. A base is the repeated factor of a number written in an exponential form. So in the problem 4 to the third, the 4 here is your base. The 3 is your exponent. And it means 4 times 4 times 4. It doesn't mean 4 times 3. It means 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. When working with exponents, it's important to be aware of parentheses and negative signs. Okay. If the exponent is within the parentheses, that means something slightly different than something outside of the parentheses. I'll show you what that means in a few examples. Write the following using exponents. I have a negative 11 times a negative 11 times a negative 11 times a negative 11. The base is negative 11. It's the same thing over and over and over again, and it's used 4 times. So it needs to be written negative 11 to the 4th power. The negative sign needs to be inside the parenthesis, and the exponent needs to be outside of the parenthesis. Otherwise, you're saying the opposite of 11 to the 4th power. This is saying take negative 11 and take it to the 4th power. If I was just to put this means negative 11 times 11 times 11 times 11. That's what negative 11 without the parentheses, the 4th power means. So this problem should be negative 11 inside the parentheses to the 4th power, which is outside the parentheses. Letter B says negative 5 times x times x times y times y times x. So I have a negative 5. I have 3 x's, so that'd be x to the 3rd power. I have 2 y's, so that would be y to the 2nd power. Always put variables in alphabetical order, so x comes before y. Letter C. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, or actually negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Again, the negative is within the parenthesis, so it needs to stay there, so the exponent is outside the parenthesis. So I'd do negative 3 in parentheses to the 4th power. So sometimes they call those parentheses quantity. It'd be negative 3 quantity to the 4th power. Number 4, here we have 4y times x times y. So this is 4. We have 1x and 2y, so it's 4x times y to the 2nd. And we don't need any multiplication symbols because variables next to each other imply multiplication. All right, when we work with exponents, we also need to remember the order of operations. Remember, the first thing we're supposed to do is work within the grouping symbols. That is, simplify any terms with exponents, then multiply and divide in order from left to right, and subtract in order from left to right. So, if I'm going to simplify 3 times 1 plus 4 to the 3rd power, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1 plus 4, and it says parentheses first, so I have 3. The parentheses means multiply, so I'll do that later. 4 plus 1 is 5 to the 3rd power. Before I can take and multiply by 3, I do have to take 5 to the 3rd power first, because it says I have to do exponents first. So I basically am multiplying 3 times 5 times 5 times 5. Because 5 to the 3rd power is not 15, it's 5 used as a base 3 times. 5 times 5 is 25, 25 times 5 is 125, so this is 3 times 125, which makes this 375. Letter B, evaluate 7, parentheses, w plus 3 to the 3rd power plus c, for w equaling negative 5 and z equaling 6. So I'm going to have 7, parentheses. W is negative 5 plus 3, all to the third power. And then I have to add z to that. Then just put up the z. Z is 6. There we go. So the first thing I need to do is negative 5 plus 3. So I have 7 times. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Cubed plus 6. Cubed is the same third power. So negative 2 to the third power means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is negative 8. So I have 7 times negative 8 plus 6. 7 times negative 8 is negative 56. Negative 56 plus 6 is negative 50. Notice how neatly I've done these problems and how I've stepped them down vertically so that we can tell step by step by step. Let's look at a couple of more questions. Evaluate negative a to the fourth and negative a to the fourth. Notice the difference. They look the same. If you were trying to read them, they'd almost read the same. But the first one means the opposite of a to the fourth, and the second one means negative a to the fourth. Okay, so let's do both of these. Okay, right here, this first one, I have the opposite of a to the fourth, which means this. A is 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's what it's saying. It's saying the opposite of whatever a to the fourth is. A is 2, so 2 to the fourth is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, so that's 16. So I have the opposite of 16, which is negative 16. If I do negative a to the fourth, this second one right here, this is telling me negative, right? It says negative a, the opposite of a. The opposite of a is 2, so a is 2, the opposite of a is negative 2. So this is saying negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Because it's saying the opposite of a to the fourth power. Okay, so I need to take the opposite of a first, which the opposite of a is negative 2, and then take that to the fourth power, which makes this one be positive 16. So notice where that negative sign goes completely changes the answer for these two problems. So pay attention where the negative sign is. Okay, very, very, very important. Look at letter B here. Evaluate 3a squared plus 6 for a equaling negative 5. So we're going to have 3 times negative 5 squared. And by the way, negative 5 quantity squared that way, and negative 5 squared this way mean exactly the same thing. All right? You have to pay attention to the fact that they want you to. It's when they don't have parentheses that you have to worry about. So this is saying negative 5 squared, which is 25, so I'm going to have 3 times 25, which happens to be 25. Oh, and I forgot to add my 6 again. Here we go, add it again. So 75 plus 6 equals 81. My answer should be 81. I always seem to leave off those last little digits. Be careful, don't make that mistake. That's why I always look a second time to make sure I know what the world I'm doing. Always a good idea to do that. And that's the entire lesson on exponents.